Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special holiday edition of the Best Phone Plans Podcast. I'm Stetson, and with me today, as always, is Dennis. Dennis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. Always glad to have another show with you.
That's great to hear. Always glad to hear that. And yeah, so this is our sort of Christmas Eve holiday special. Dennis and I are actually recording this on Saturday. Shoot, it's Sunday. My goodness. December 20th, because we want to enjoy the holidays and, of course, take some relaxing time off. But yeah, this should be just kind of a fun, casual episode. So yeah, Dennis, I think we should kind of get into it first. Any holiday plans going on? I know it's kind of a tricky time, but anything like any online games you're playing with friends, anything you doing?
Yeah, a lot's going on. So now that like Christmas break's kind of like a thing for college kids, me and some buddies of mine are finally getting to catch up again. As you know, tonight I'll be playing Dungeons and Dragons with them and having
Nice.
some fun with them. On Christmas Eve, um, it's going to be a little different than it normally is. It's just going to be me and my parents, and we're just going to kind of watch some Christmas movies, just have like a little binge watching session.
That sounds
Um,
great.
Normally on Christmas Eves, though, in the past, I come from like an old school, like Catholic, like 100% Italian family. So normally
Sure.
what we do is we'd have like this huge, I'm talking like picture like Game of Thrones style, like feast, but,
Oh,
but
so
like
it's like
all.
okay, wait. My question: how does the Christmas Eve feast compare with like a Thanksgiving feast?
Well, the Christmas Eve feast that we have is all like fish. So it's
Okay,
like 7 different fishes. And I love seafood. My dad hates it. Um,
I'm with your dad. I like sushi and salmon and some things, but I feel like my flavor palette is a little more limited when it comes to seafood. I prefer other food categories.
but as far as like a spread is concerned, I actually prefer Thanksgiving because it's more diverse. And Thanksgiving time is when I get to eat some of my favorite desserts, including pumpkin pie.
Oh,
Um,
so good.
and also my aunt makes like this like cranberry like jello-y like dessert. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like fresh cranberries and it's got like a jello-y texture that kind of like holds it all together, and it's like super delicious.
Mm.
So Thanksgiving feast is my favorite feast, but this spread is also pretty good. It's not that often that I go get to eat like, different seafoods like shrimp and cod and smelts and, lobster and every other excursion you can think of from the bottom ocean, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. Actually,
so
one question I had for you is you guys have HBO Max with your AT&T plan, right? Or are you grandfathered in so you don't get that?
no, yeah, I upgraded into the elite plan, so I have HBO Max, correct.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Are you guys enjoying any of the Christmas Day launches? I think what's coming out is it I want to say it's like a superhero movie, but I can't
Wonder
remember.
Woman.
Wonder
Wonder
Woman,
Woman.
yeah.
So I haven't really watched any Christmas movies yet off of HBO. What I was watching recently to kind of get into the mood of things was the more recent release of The Grinch.
Yeah, okay.
Um, I'm still like my family and me, we have like this like older feeling for like holiday movies, right? Like I like the original Grinch by Dr. Seuss. I like the original Frosty the Snowman, right? And
Sure.
those are the ones that we typically go back to rewatch if we're gonna do anything. Um, but yeah, no, as far as HBO Max is concerned, the content that I've been watching on there is I saw that His Dark Materials came out with season 2, so I got that lined up and ready to go for my personal enjoyment. But I rewatched the South Park Christmas special as well.
Okay, okay.
Because I love South Park. And there's a lot of good stuff on HBO Max. Like it's so nice, by the way, that it's finally on Roku. It's finally on
Yeah.
Roku. It's finally on is it on Fire Stick too? No. Yeah, Fire Stick too.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
might be, yeah.
yeah. So I think right now HBO Max is finally on like every platform, including like Comcast's like X1 box. So yeah, no, it's pretty sick. But what about you, man? What are you doing for Christmas?
Yes. So, it's kind of a funny story to some degree. So first, because of COVID, I'm from Massachusetts. My parents are still in Massachusetts. So I normally would have loved to have go home. Typically, we do like a great family dinner on my dad's side, Christmas Eve, and then on my mom's side, we host sort of a Christmas dinner, which is always fun. Great food, great people, of course. Always fun to see family. This year, because of everything that's going on, I'm actually staying in Colorado, trying to keep everyone safe. So my roommate and I are just gonna hang out. We're probably gonna do sort of a Thanksgiving part two, if you will, kind of cook our own meal and figure something else out. And the funny story that I kind of mentioned earlier is actually I bought a TV, right? It was a TCL Series 6 or 635, excuse me. And it actually broke. Just didn't turn on one day. Either the panel or some sort of logic board component was completely dead. Thankfully, I was able to return it, but we're actually TV-less right now. So no real movies or entertainment on the big screen. But I'm hoping I do have one on order from B&H, and I'm hoping that gets here maybe by the end of the week. We'll have to see what happens.
You love B&H, man.
I do.
I've never shopped from there ever, and I only vaguely knew about them because of PC Part Picker, but I've never actually like been to one or did anything. Like, why not just get like the TV from Best Buy? Like, why B&H?
Yeah, so B&H is this kind of unique company where I think it's entirely run by Jewish people, which is interesting. And they close on Fridays. I think it's for the Shabbat. Totally respect that. I love the store, love supporting them. They actually only have one physical location, and it's the B&H Superstore in New York, right? And everything else you order online. What I loved about them is they had free like next day or 2 day shipping from New York to Massachusetts, which was incredible. And it was tax free. When new government legislation made it so that B&H actually had to start charging the local sales tax, they introduced what they call, this is a silly name, but they call it the Paybu credit card. And all it does is it reimburses you for any tax you would pay. So in Colorado, I'm basically getting what effectively translates to 8% back on all my purchases. So instead of spending, I think the TV was listed at $1,500. So instead of spending $1,620 after you add on taxes, I got it for the flat $1,500 price point and B&H free shipping. So that's why I opted for that route as opposed to the local Best Buy.
That is pretty sick. I did not know all that about that company, and that explains why I've never seen a physical store.
Yep.
But that is really cool. Let me ask you something more pressing. Are
Sure.
you a turkey man or a ham man on Christmas?
Oh, that's a great question. I like to keep an open mind. I actually think we don't even we might do ham, but I think we do sort of like this really nice roast pork. I don't know if it's the same animal as ham, but I don't know if I would necessarily qualify it as ham in my mind. But yeah, I guess if we are doing pork, then I would say ham. Turkey's usually Thanksgiving, and you guys
And
are obviously fish, right? So
well, fish on Christmas Eve, but like Christmas Day, we still do like the ham and stuff. But Christmas Eve is the 7 fish feast thing.
nice.
It has like Catholic traditions. It's probably not that common, honestly, anymore as people get less and less religious. But it's a tradition we keep celebrating. So,
I
which is
respect that.
ironic. Which is ironic since I'm not really a practitioner of the faith.
Yeah,
But
whatever works. I think it's just great to have family together, to have good food, and hopefully to celebrate safely.
definitely. And now let me ask you something else, man.
Sure.
As far as desserts are concerned, man, what is like your like family's like special signature Christmas dessert? Like, is it just cookies that you guys buy? Do you do
Yeah,
anything
actually,
fun?
I'm pretty sure we just outsource that. I think we buy a chocolate box, and I feel like sometimes people bring pies and ice cream. Just sort of casual things. I don't know if we necessarily have like a flagship dessert that everyone looks forward to. I think honestly, my family just looks forward to like the fun drinks, like the champagne, the cider, things like that.
Okay. So the thing that we always look forward to at my family's house are like little lady fingers.
Okay.
Um, and we make them ourselves. Like it's like picture like a pastel cookie, but like wrapped circular and then filled with like the cream stuff.
Yeah.
And they're god tier, and there's like a little bit of powdered sugar on there. It's honest to God, it's literally like crack. Like once you have one, you're gonna eat like 10 of them, and they're great. And
Yeah.
then of course, like we make all types of other cutesy cookies and stuff like that. Well, I shouldn't say we. It's my aunt makes all types of cookies and cutesy things like that with like little Christmas trees and there's this Italian I don't even know what you would call the cookie. Like I don't know the name of it, but it's literally just the shape of like a ball. And it's an Italian style cookie. I don't know how you describe it. I don't know even what it's called, but it goes perfectly with black coffee. You
Oh,
just dip it in coffee and the bitterness from the coffee helps balance out the sweetness from the cookie and it's just wonderful.
that sounds
So
delightful.
that's good. And then Usually there's other desserts that are made too, like my aunt will make like this I don't know what it's called, but like it'll have like a pretzel base for like the crust, right? It's like crushed pretzels for the base. And then it's like strawberries and like jello with like whipped cream on the top. And it's like really light and refreshing. So,
Wow, Dennis, you're making me hungry. Like, we're
dude,
recording this a few days out, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to wait so long until all this delicious food.
right. I mean, literally, there is a reason why I got this belly. My family loves to eat.
That's great. I love that. I respect that. Okay, wait. So here's another question. Any top items on your wish list this year? And then maybe we can segue into our top items for things we'd like to see the carriers do. So our wish list for the cellular carriers. But first, personal. Dennis, anything you got? Anything you're hoping for?
Wish list for this year, huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, why don't you go first and let me think about that for a
Sure,
second.
I can respect that. My wish list, I mean, I'm just looking forward to having a TV, kicking back, relaxing, watching some movies, catching up on some TV shows. And my roommate and I, we actually have Google Stadia, so we kind of got into that realm. I'm interested to give that a try, kind of enjoy some time, just sort of relaxing, and maybe working on my website a little bit, doing a little bit of research. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to hanging out a little bit this holiday. That's what I'm excited about.
Okay, and I thought of one for me.
Okay.
My wish list for this upcoming year is that everything with my house that is being built goes smoothly.
Yeah.
So that way I can move into that and be happy go lucky. And I'm also going to be going back to school to get my master's. So hopefully, I'm hoping that I have a successful year as far as grades are concerned, and I don't get overwhelmed.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I respect. Those are great wishes. And I definitely hope everything goes smoothly as well. And all of our listeners out there, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. And I certainly wish that you get some delightful gifts or you get some delicious food or some good time with some friends and family. But yeah, Dennis, what do you have on your wish list for any of the carriers that are out there? I know there's a lot of them and it can be overwhelming to talk about it. I think I researched this and there's like I think either 100 or 200, I think 137 MVNOs in the United States. And that's probably actually excluding Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. So there's a
right.
lot of carriers, but maybe do you have any broader wish list ideas or any specific ones that maybe you're hoping to see this year in wireless?
Yeah, that one's really easy for me. So, my wish list for wireless carriers goes as follows. One, I want T-Mobile to make this year the focus on improving their network. And when I say improving their network, I mean no more cut corners. I want them to literally go to one cell site, deploy band N41, band 71. I want everything to be deployed on said cell site, and I want there to be backup power on all of their cell sites going forward. So I want T-Mobile to really focus on that. Like they cannot afford to um, just fail on something like that. They have huge potential right now. So that's what I want from T-Mobile. As far as AT&T is concerned, my wish list for them is that they stop being so strict with their NVNO and prepaid partners.
Okay.
I really want them to allow competition to flourish, right? Like we saw great things happen from Wing when AT&T wasn't being so controlling.
Yeah, yeah, when they were minding their own business and all of a sudden, "Ooh, you know what? That plan doesn't look so good. Let's nerf that a little bit."
Right. So I want AT&T to kind of like cool the rocks and like let NVNOs do unique and fun things because they might come up with a good idea that AT&T can later implement, right? It's not bad for them.
Right.
And then as far as Verizon is concerned, my wish list to them is that they just do better on their pricing. I think
Interesting.
Verizon is just living on cloud nine right now. As far as how they're pricing their services are concerned, like they have two plans that are pretty much the same, and I
Yeah.
don't really quite understand their logic. And I'd really like them to go back to the drawing board and come up with something truly value oriented and truly competitive because Verizon, although they're still really good, doesn't live in a void anymore. Like AT&T, and T-Mobile are true competitors to them, and I would argue AT&T is offering better plans.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially with AT&T Unlimited Elite and everything it includes, the I think it's 100 gigs of priority data, which is the highest in the industry right now, which is amazing. And I think all the plans are very similar in terms of hotspot. I think AT&T's 30 gigs. I think Verizon's 30 gigs with their premium plan. And I think T-Mobile's actually a little bit
20.
lacking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think those are great. I agree with you on T-Mobile. I wish them the best of luck in building out their network, and I really hope they're able to have a fast deployment of mid-band. I think mid-band 5G will give them the edge right before Verizon and AT&T are able to deploy any of their mid-band spectrum that they get from the C-band auction. And I also hope, I think T-Mobile is doing some really good things. I would love for them to improve the hotspot capabilities on their Magenta plan and their Magenta Plus plan. I think 3 gigs is quite honestly pitiful. Like 3 gigs of I get more hotspot data on my Mint plan, right? Like I can use all 8 gigs as hotspot data. So love to see that. Verizon side, I wish them the best in the C-band auction. I would love for them to get some really good spectrum because I think Verizon's doing some great things with their network. I think they're building it really well. And I would love for them to just be able to increase their network capacity because I know it can be congested in certain areas. And yeah, AT&T, I think they're doing all right. Honestly, my biggest wish for AT&T is for them to improve their website and their billing system. We've talked about this before, but people get bill estimates that are literally hundreds of dollars more than they actually end up paying. It's ridiculous. I feel their website is a little bit slow and could be improved as well. So, and that actually, kind of is a broader theme. I think a lot of the MVNOs specifically, I would love to see better website design, more transparency. I don't want to have to go to the FAQ section to find out if Wi-Fi calling or voice over LTE is supported, things like that. So better web design, maybe a better app experience if you need one. But yeah, little things like that I would just love to see improvements on because if we're being honest, like the service doesn't really change too much, right? Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, they're the ones responsible for building the networks. But from an MVNO perspective, like the real value add is like customer service, the activation experience, the website experience, the app experience, things like that. So,
And
yeah.
arguably for MVNOs, it's even more important their websites are good because they don't have brick and mortar stores where customers can go in to resolve their problems typically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a really, really great point. And I want to give a shout out actually to US Mobile, right? I think their website is one of the cleanest in the industry. I love it. I think it's so beautiful. Maybe this is weird, but I could probably print it out and just look at it. Like that would be art. I'd frame it as art. I really like it. One of the ones I think could use the most improvements is Boom Mobile. I'll reference some of Boom's plans like, hey, these are really good. They actually have it's an annual plan, unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data on any network, Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, for just $20 a month. So it's a great plan, great value. But I frequently get comments that people can't find the plan, right? Like, boom, you would have so many more customers if your website was easy to use, easy to navigate, and easy to activate the service. So
Definitely. And I would argue Visible's website could also use some cleanup. I was telling you about my buddy that was trying to order their service
yeah,
and there was no like option for eSIM and there was like a little bit of confusion throughout the process where I had to like help him and he's the same age as me. So like it's not like he's not tech
right,
literate.
right.
So
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think the eSIM rollout is I feel like carriers are trying to balance that where they want to support it, but they don't want to overwhelm their support by getting a lot of questions about it. So they don't want to like make it super public and announce to everyone that, eSIM's available because then they'll get flooded with questions. And I think it's also, they just haven't updated their website quite
right.
yet. I do think Visible's through the application. I'm hoping to do that soon, but I've been prioritizing some other content.
On a side note, by the way, on the comment about T-Mobile's low threshold for data,
Yeah.
LTE full speed data, if T-Mobile, let's just say T-Mobile doesn't raise their data allotment per se, but raise the speed of their hotspot, because right now it's kept like 3G, right? 600
Yeah.
kilobits or whatever. If they raised it up to 5 megabits per second like Visible does, would that make you satisfied?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think 5 megabits per second, that's usable for stuff, right? Once you can do standard definition video streaming, you can do maybe even 720p, to be honest with you. Maybe even HD. I don't know about that, but possibly. And I feel like that's just a more usable speed, right? Where the reason I feel like I need hotspot is maybe I'm traveling or maybe I don't have a good internet connection, like hotel Wi-Fi, like whatever the situation is. and just being able to share my cellular data plan that I'm paying for with my computer, that's like to get work done. I love that. And the 600 kilobit per second speed cap T-Mobile currently has, I don't know about you, Dennis, but I feel like it's personally basically unusable. Like I might as well not have it. That's my take.
Um, so 600 kilobits per second ain't great, but it is usable to a certain extent. I mean,
Like what? Light email, maybe a little bit of Reddit. You can get some Twitter going, but
I
I
mean,
feel like
most things work related, and even video you can actually probably get away with, like 360p. I know it's not great, but you could. You
right.
technically
I don't know. I feel like you're just waiting so long for it to buffer, and at that point, I almost feel like the hotel Wi-Fi might be better.
Well, what's sad is that I know what it's like because I told you, man, I used to deal with DSL for a long time, and that 600 kilobits per second is basically a DSL connection, which millions of Americans still rely on.
Oh
So,
no.
oh, you didn't know that? Yeah. I was
Oh
just,
no, that's so bad. I hope. Okay, wish for 2021. I hope everyone gets faster internet.
dude, there's still millions of Americans that don't have internet options at all. Outside of satellite, they have nothing.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Well, let's
yeah.
get Starlink going. Let's get some solutions rolling out. That's my take.
But yeah, no, I agree. 600 kilobits ain't great, especially for how, like, if websites were still like they were back in like 2006, right, where there wasn't so many ads and different JavaScripts going on in the background,
Exactly.
it wouldn't be so bad. But yeah, no, I'd agree that it's super slow. Although I would also argue, it could also be argued that part of the blame for needing these faster speeds in the first place is because companies have got a little bit lax on how they optimize things. Like, if you, I don't know if you've like seen this, but like on Android, right? Android has two forms of their OS, right? They have the full fleshed out one, which requires like really good hardware to run properly, and then they have like this like Android Lite version for like,
I think it's called Android Go.
yeah, that's what it's called. And all of their apps are like super light. It's like 1 or 2 megabits in size. And they function a lot more in the sense like your web browser does, where all the processing and all that stuff happens at the server and the client's just being fed the information. So there's things that like companies can do to get by with less bandwidth if they optimize correctly. So
Okay. Yeah, I respect that. I think the easiest solution is to have T-Mobile give us more hotspot data.
No,
But
I agree.
I definitely acknowledge there's other solutions to this.
I do agree. I still think T-Mobile's being slow about it. I think they should make it at least 5 meg. But I was just saying that I don't put all the blame on them, is what I'm trying to get at.
Sure. I definitely hear that. And I do love that T-Mobile includes all taxes and fees. And, especially when you stack up some of those plans, right, where you add on taxes and fees to Verizon or AT&T, that adds up to, I don't know, $60 to $80 extra per year. And T-Mobile, they include everything, which is great.
Unless you live in Delaware, man. Delaware has no state sales tax, which is
Oh,
beautiful.
really? That's incredible.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
wow.
Delaware is like an awesome state to be in for pretty much everything. They have zero sales tax on things, and they're a lot of their stuff's pretty low. But out here in Pennsylvania, like I'll give you a good one. E911 regulatory fee is like $1.65 here. Do you know what it is over there for you, Stetson?
I actually don't. I've no. I'm paying for like 5 different plans right now. I feel like I should know this. I have no idea. I just accept it and move on.
Well, a lot of those fees, by the way, aren't even things that are mandated by the state. Like AT&T just tax them on. Just for
Yeah,
fun.
you know what? I would love to get into that. I don't know too much about it. I found a page on Metro's website actually that highlighted all the different taxes and fees by state, and I'm almost wondering if that's just universal, like if what Metro is listing actually applies to all the carriers, and it's like a good, like this is how much everything costs. But the truth is, I think it's kind of a gray area where carriers will sometimes charge you for things that you really don't need to be charged for.
Well, I'll tell you one right now that I want to put on my wish list for fees to go away. Upgrade fees. Those are
Oh
so
my
bogus.
gosh. You know what? Also, activation fees, right? And I can get it. Like, all right, you're in a store, you're paying the sales staff employee to get you activated, but literally only the major providers have activation fees that I'm aware of. I could be mistaken.
Metro
Maybe.
PCS has an activation fee.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I did pay that. That's true. Actually, I didn't pay that. I got super lucky and they had a holiday promo or something where they didn't charge me because I brought my own device. But they normally do. And while we're on this topic, Metro PCS actually has a very stupid $20 device. It's not even a device upgrade fee. It's a device swap fee. Like if I wanted to move my Metro PCS SIM, Metro by T-Mobile, excuse me, Metro SIM card from one device to another, boom, $20. Move it back, boom, $20.
It's so backwards to like the carriers should be doing everything in their power to make it easy for consumers to be replacing their devices to take advantage of all this money they're investing in 5G and so forth. And they have all these different pay barriers there just to nickel and dime you, and it makes no sense. It makes people upset. It's just so frustrating. It needs to go. Like,
yes,
it just needs
Dennis,
to go.
yes, I'm so happy you said that. And actually, this is a great segue because at one point during this year, it did go, right? And this was around May, June, and July when Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and a bunch of other carriers, they had the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And yeah, I think we can kind of I'd love to talk about some of the positive things that these carriers did because it was really amazing, to be honest, to see the response. I think some responses were a little bit better than others, but still, I want to give shout outs and appreciation to all of the carriers, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, the carriers that took the pledge definitely did good. I'm glad that they did that. Which carrier do you think had the best response?
that's a great question. We actually talked about this before the show. I'm going to go Mint Mobile on this one. And what Mint's response is they gave all Mint Mobile customers free unlimited data add-ons. And this means after you used up your included high-speed allotment, normally you're capped at 2G speeds, 128 kilobits per second, but Mint would let you add on a high-speed data allotment. Usually it's 1 gig for $10 or 3 gigs for $20, and you could purchase as many of those as you needed. And this actually, because you could use the data as hotspot data, this effectively gave customers a way to access unlimited handset data and unlimited hotspot data, which I thought was great.
And as you know from the pre-show, I 100% agree with you. Mint did hands down the best job at implementing it. They didn't require any like convoluted calls or anything like that. It was just real simple. Click a button in the app and you were great. And like you said, unlimited data, like that was the best response you could ask for from a company, honestly.
Yeah. And what surprised me about it is I originally tweeted like, wow, it was great. T-Mobile and Mint reached this agreement to bring this opportunity to Mint Mobile customers. And I heard back that this was actually not between Mint and T-Mobile. This was a decision fully made by the people at Mint. They were ready to cover, I guess, any additional costs this could incur because typically MVNOs like Mint are paying per gigabyte. So they were willing to just cover any extra data usage by their customers. I thought that was great. I thought that was really wonderful of them.
Now, who was the worst? Who's getting cool this year? Who did the worst response?
Ooh, okay. I'd be curious to hear your response. After doing my research on this, I feel like AT&T did the worst here. And, you know, they're still nice, right? Like every carrier was doing nice things, waiving overage charges, late fees. They're keeping everyone's service connected. But what AT&T, what kind of, made me raise my eyebrow was the 20% off accessories, right? And on one hand, all right, nice, it's a deal, it's a discount. On the other hand, it also feels like this is just an excuse to have a sale, right? So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like they probably handled this a little bit worse. The other two I'll shout out, actually, that might be even worse than that. AT&T Prepaid and Cricket. What was nice is they introduced new $15 2 gig plans, but they redacted those plans. They actually took them away, and any customer on those plans was forced to either cancel their service, leave the network, or upgrade to a plan that was 2 times more expensive, $30 to $40 a month. So that to me was a really negative response where all of a sudden you have people who are signing up to save money, get an affordable plan, and then you're forcing them to upgrade to something 2 times more expensive. So I don't know. That seemed like a customer acquisition ploy to me. What are your thoughts, Dennis?
So I agree that AT&T probably was the worst in general, but I'm going to throw one that's a curveball for you.
Sure.
I think T-Mobile was both the best and the worst, or not the best, I'm sorry. But I thought T-Mobile did good and was one of the worst at the same time with their rollout for their perks.
Yeah.
So, as you know, T-Mobile did the whole thing where they were giving customers like additional hotspot data.
Yep.
But
so I think it was 10 gigs per cycle.
Right. But the process of getting like that 10 gigabits wasn't something that was just like added on to everybody, right?
Wait, it wasn't?
No.
Oh my God. I didn't know that.
No, yeah. So you actually had to like call in to like get that added. Like that was something you proactively had to do, right?
Jeez.
And that is like the biggest like fu I can think of.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest PR stunt. Like, oh, we're doing something good, but probably like 1% of our customers actually even knew it happened and took advantage of it. Like it was something the customer had to mainly opt into. It wasn't something that was like automatic. So
Jeez.
that's why
Yeah.
I give T-Mobile the you did the worst of the year type of deal. Plus, it was
Slap on
only
the wrist.
10 gigabits per billing cycle, right? 10 gigabytes, excuse me, um, is essentially nothing, right? Like that's something AT&T normally does anyway with their like hotspot plans, right? 30 gigs on the elite plan. So like what's 10
Sure,
gigabytes?
sure. You bring up some fair points. I will say when you're coming with plans that have 3 gigs and 20 gigs respectively of hotspot data, that's a pretty substantial improvement, right, to those plans. But you are correct. I mean, Verizon was 15 gigs of extra data. I think that was for hotspot. AT&T did 10 gigs of data, but they added it automatically. So maybe I take it back. I thought AT&T was bad, but I think just the automatic nature of that is so much better than what T-Mobile is doing. I will say from T-Mobile's press, I did notice they donated up to $500,000 to Feeding America,
I saw
and
that. Yeah.
they also did another donation. I can't remember. I don't know if I wrote it down actually, but they did do another donation program, which I really appreciated. And it was to the Boys and Girls Club of America COVID-19 Relief Fund.
Now, the thing I will say is T-Mobile did do good. They made all their plans unlimited for like on device use, which was
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, it's
And I
kind
was
of unlimited anyway. I don't really were they just making it priority? Like, I don't
well, I'm sure it was for the people that had legacy plans, like the old Simple
Yeah.
Choice plans.
Okay, yep.
So, I mean, I respect them for that. I'm not sure if that was automatically done either, to be honest. But because I don't have one of those old plans, but that's why I gave T-Mobile like the big you deserve a piece of cool this year for Christmas.
Sure. I mean, I'll defend them a little bit more. They were doing some really cool things with schools. They were giving free internet to some school programs, offering discounts on their service. And there was one they had called Project 10 Million, and they were providing eligible households with 100 gigs of data per year and a free mobile hotspot for 5 years. So
Wasn't that part of
that might have been something else not related to COVID, but still kind of a nice gesture.
because I'm pretty sure when they acquired Sprint had those old deals with people, and I believe that's one of the things they had to do anyway.
Oh, well, that made that. Yeah, you know what? Dennis, I'm with you. T-Mobile, slap on the wrist. That should have been automatic. It doesn't cost you any extra to give people more data.
Or if it does, it's still the right thing to do, and you're going to make up for
Yeah,
it anyway in any time. Which,
right.
on a side note, did all of the carriers make the pledge not to disconnect? Was that something we can confirm?
That's a great question. I want to say yes. I think that was actually mandated by the government. So I'm going to go yes on that. I may be mistaken, but I'm going yes.
Gotcha. Because I'd be curious. We didn't really do research on it, but I would be curious to see what ended up happening with all those people that had debts. Like as soon as that time period went over, did they just kind of get
Yeah,
screwed?
I was seeing they had like payment restructure programs in place, things like that. You could call. I think it was more along the lines of you still owe us money, but we'll maybe it's you pay it off over however many months, something like that. So yeah, I think it was different. I definitely after living through the experience, I'm grateful for all the little perks the carriers added, even if they were potentially more PR focused instead of actually benefiting consumers. But still, I think it was pretty good and loved what Mint did as a Mint Mobile customer myself. So,
What would you have done differently, Stetson, if you had control to make the changes? Right, like
yeah,
you said, AT&T was your worst, right? What would you have done differently if you were AT&T?
that's a really great question. So, I think what I would have done is made it well, I don't actually know because AT&T I feel like was automatic. I feel like just T-Mobile, maybe in general as a broader statement, I would say automatic, extra hotspot data, extra high priority handset data. Um, maybe I don't actually know. Maybe like a bill discount or something. I mean, it's kind of a delicate balance because these carriers they do need to make money, but like how much money? I don't know. Is there anything you would have done differently, Dennis? I don't feel like I had a really great answer to that.
Yeah. there's a few things I would have done differently. First, in the very beginning when this is all happening, I would have put consumers at ease by explaining what's going to happen when they don't pay their bills so that they absolutely know upfront, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. You're still going to owe me this, but when this is all said and done, you can give me a call and we can work out a financing agreement with you where I tack on $10 or something on each of your bills until you pay me that pass through balance or whatever it was.
Right.
So like that's the first thing I would do so that they know what's going on. Second, instead of giving like 10 gigabyte allotments, I would just say unlimited data, period, hotspot and everything else, unlimited for the duration of while this is happening. This way everybody can be connected. And that would be opt-in automatic. The third thing I would do is during this period of time, I would try to provide credits where possible for people that truly are having like obvious hard times, like affording stuff. Like,
yeah, you know what? Actually, this is an idea I just had while you were talking about that. Maybe customers who could afford to pay their bills could have an option to donate, a couple bucks to help customers who cannot pay their bills, right? Just like a
Right.
little option. I feel like that could help pool some money. Like, hey, your bill was covered by other T-Mobile customers. Like, how cool would that have been?
Right, and it gets that whole community going. Like that's a really good idea, and I definitely would do that too. But I was also thinking as well for people that are having like a hard time like affording things. Like let's just say you're a family of 5, maybe, right? You had a good job, everything was going well. Your bill's like $250, right?
Right.
Then COVID happens. You're unemployed. You're furloughed. For those type of
Exactly.
people,
Yeah.
I would have tried to reduce their bill as well, so that amount of debt that they're racking up is as low as possible. So I wouldn't reduce their device payments because, right, I don't make money off that anyway.
Yeah,
Like,
you can't do that. But anything
but
service related, you can manipulate.
right. So maybe their service I would have reduced down to like $10 per line, right? Like an internet essentials sort of deal, right? Like customers could opt into that for the lower payments, $10 per line. You'll have unlimited data, but you'll be deprioritized, but at least it covers like your costs and I'm helping you out, right?
Sure. Another
So,
idea, maybe you give customers the option to switch plans without penalty or without caveats, like being able to switch from a Verizon postpaid plan to maybe everyone can go to prepaid and you can get, a cheaper price per line, something more affordable.
how would
Because
that work with the financing of phones though?
yeah, you just let it happen. That's what I'm saying. Like instead of having these weird financing restrictions, like, hey, we recognize this is a challenging time. If you would like to switch to these lower tier plans, like you're welcome to do that. Keep your device payments. And if you'd like to upgrade in the future or go back to your other plan, you can do that in the future as well.
Even if it was a grandfathered plan?
I would not do it for a grandfathered plan. I feel like that kind of defeats the purpose. Like you could drop down and then drop back to one of the current offerings, but just like not have any weird activation fees or things like
Okay.
that.
I'm following you. Yeah, like I like that. But point is, I feel like there's a lot more they could have did. And like you, Stetson, I feel like this was more of a PR stunt than anything else.
Yeah, I kind of do get that a little bit of a sour taste. I mean, I do respect this and it definitely helped people out, but at the end of the day, people are still getting the same service as they were before and they still do have to pay for it. So,
And they were paying, the same exact amount, right? Like these people are coming
yeah.
away with like $600 balances now.
And I
There's
mean,
no, there's no forgiveness. There's no debt forgiveness. There's no options. Like there's nothing really.
the other thing too is, it kind of prompted the whole maybe switch to prepaid or switch to a different plan option was with AT&T, they didn't even have the ability to have multiple different plans under one account until recently, right? So if you were on AT&T, every line was on the elite plan or every line was on the unlimited extra plan. Whereas I think that would have been a great opportunity like, hey, if you'd like to lower your bill, you can swap some lines to more affordable plans and implement the mix and match there. So yeah, I mean, overall, maybe a little bit more of a PR stunt than usual, but I do think it kind of shows what the carriers could do. Like, why not just let everyone keep the extra 15 gigs of hotspot data or extra priority data? Why not keep the $15 2 gig plans on Cricket and AT&T prepaid, things like that?
Right. Yeah. Permanent changes too. Right. Yeah. Like that would have been good. And also, you add this in on the doc notes too. But AT&T and Verizon, as we know, also offer home service. And we saw they did some really positive things on that side. Like Verizon Fios upgrade all their customers to gigabit internet. Right.
Yeah,
No,
that's huge.
no charge, just gigabit internet. Boom. And then like AT&T, I believe, waived data caps in the place that they have data caps, like across the board on their home internet service, right?
Yeah.
And Comcast, I believe, did the same thing. They waived data caps for a short period of time there with COVID, right? So it's clear that they had the means to do so, and they did it on like their other parts of their business. It just seems like on the cell phone side of things, the wireless side of things, really didn't get the same level of treatment or love.
Yeah, I wish they were able to keep some of these too. I mean, I feel like with so many people at home, you run into two different scenarios where someone like me, where I have gigabit internet provided by the city of Longmont, I'm actually using my phone less and less. I'm not doing basically any data use. I'm just chilling at home most of the time. Whereas there's some people in more rural parts where they don't get great internet and their phone hotspot actually ends up being the preferred option. So I feel like the network would balance out in usage anyway. So yeah, it would have been nice to see some more permanent changes and improvements. But as we mentioned kind of at the beginning of this episode, hopefully we do see some planned improvements and changes going into 2021.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I know I said I wasn't going to talk about this, but I still want to bring it up.
Yeah, bring it up. Go for it.
So Stetson, as you know, during this time of the year, we always see fun Christmas style commercials, right?
It's very true.
I'd be curious to see what the audience ends up saying in the comments. But here's the question for you, audience. What is your favorite and most memorable Christmas commercial? For me,
I was just going to say, if you're watching this on, I don't know what you call it. It's a premiere. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. I'll be reading these and replying to them. If you're listening to the podcast, feel free to jump to the episode on YouTube. It'll be in the show notes and you can leave a comment. Love to hear your thoughts. And Dennis, please continue.
Sure. So my personal favorite Christmas commercial was one that was done by T-Mobile like a few years back. And it was titled "The Carriers Who Almost Stole Wireless."
Oh, that's clever.
And basically, one of my favorite Christmas movies is Dr. Seuss. And this had like a Dr. Seuss style like cartoon drawing theme. It had the carriers like Verizon, AT&T, and I believe Comcast is like the gray guy. And they're going all around like talking about like fees and wireless bills. And it's all rhyming. And it has John Legere just voicing it over. And something about that Christmas commercial was super hilarious and funny to me that it's like one of my all-time favorites. And that's my personal go-to. Now, Stetson, I know when we talked, you don't watch a lot of commercials because you have like YouTube Premium and stuff like that.
YouTube Premium, don't have a TV, don't watch live TV. I'm kind of out of it, to be honest with you, when it comes to commercials and what's going on in wireless for advertisements. I really only see the Super Bowl. But yeah, this does look humorous and lighthearted and kind of funny.
But I'll just put it this, I'll make it more broad. Do you have a favorite commercial in general, personally, Stetson?
Oh man, Dennis, we're going into the depths. I feel like there have been some really excellent Super Bowl commercials. One that stands out to me, and this happened by accident. We were watching the Super Bowl. This is unrelated to wireless, but there was a Jeep commercial, and it was just, I think it was a Jeep Wrangler, right? Doing Jeep things, going through like a river that was an appropriate depth, so it looked intense, but you could totally go through it, going through some mud, climbing around. And what happened is we actually had some audio issues. So the whole commercial was silent. And we were like, wow, this is a powerful commercial. Just the silence after hearing so many ads and so many voices just being, blared at you, having the fan noise from the stadium coming through on the sound system. The silence was really cool. So if I were to make a commercial, I would definitely incorporate some element of silence into it. And that Jeep commercial stood out just for that. But I mean, there's tons of great Super Bowl commercials, and the budgets are absolutely insane.
Coke always does good commercials. Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that's true. I wish they had a healthier product. Like, I'm not sure. I believe in sugar water. Like, I wish regular water was cheaper than soda at this point. But you're absolutely right. Like, they do bring a smile to your face. They do have some really, really clever ones. So I'll respect that. I'll acknowledge that and move forward. Okay, wait, I'm pivoting the conversation, but a question I had is if you were to give someone a cell phone plan, which one would you give them? Maybe we should like stipulate a person, maybe a friend. If you had a friend who was like, hey, I'm looking for a new plan. And you were like, hey, you know what? I've got you. Here's a month of this plan. What would you give them to try out?
Well, I did just do that in real life and I recommended Visible to him. So
yeah, okay.
That was the test plan. Although based off the experience so far with Visible, I don't know if I'm necessarily regretting my decision.
Yeah, with the eSIM, you said it didn't work out so well.
No, yeah, we ended up just going with a physical SIM, but there's been some other issues along the way, which I don't necessarily fully blame Visible for, because it's kind of like that time of year where stuff being delivered is all wonky. But like, it could have all been avoided if eSIM was just like what we did was
ready to go. Yeah.
So, but either Visible or alternatively, I'd probably pick Mint. Like, honestly, I don't have Mint, but like Mint's everything about Mint's customer service is so exceptionally good that I almost can't believe they charge as low as they do. Like, just like the Ryan Reynolds call during COVID. Like, we were talking about things that companies did for COVID. How about the fact that Ryan Reynolds gave a voicemail to everybody? Like, that was just like, where else do you see that? Like, that's amazing.
So clever. I actually still have that voicemail, I think, saved on my phone. Oh my God, that was so funny to get. And, you know, speaking of Mint Mobile, they actually include what they call a share the love kit, right? So instead of charging an activation fee, Mint Mobile includes what is essentially a free trial kit with any plan you buy. So you can give it to a friend and be like, hey, like, try this out. You get a brand new number just to test out the network. If you like it, there's a second SIM card so you can transfer your existing number over to Mint. And I was like, wow, like, instead of inhibiting people from trying the network, Mint is actively trying to acquire new customers. And I thought that was really cool. And I don't know, like, the logistics behind that and what the financing comes out to, but I love to see it. And I really wish it was easier just to try a plan from Verizon, right? Like, when I sign up, I'm hit with a $40 activation fee. Like, what? I don't want to be paying that.
Yeah, everything Mint's been doing has just been so well calculated. Like, the whole experience feels very premium and not like a knockoff experience. And the performance on the network, like you've shown in your speed test, is also sometimes better than some of the plans that T-Mobile sells. So, like, if T-Mobile's coverage is good, Mint is like a really good option.
Yeah.
I will say, I've never done it, but T-Mobile's test drive is also not a bad. If we're talking about just testing,
yeah. You know, this is a good point. Actually, what is test drive? Like, you want to explain that to people who are listening?
Yeah, sure. So T-Mobile around, I want to say 2014, introduced the idea of test drive. And when they first introduced it, they used to give customers a free iPhone SE, I believe, or it was a 6S. It changed over time, but they would give you a free phone and they'd pop your SIM card in and you could test the network and you could keep it if you liked it. This later evolved into its current form of it now, where they basically give you a hotspot and they load it up with Stetson. Do you remember the amount of gigs that they give you to test the network?
Ooh, I want to say 10 or 20.
10 or 20 gigs. And basically you could take this hotspot around and you could do speed tests and kind of test the coverage using this hotspot on T-Mobile's network to see how it actually performs for you in real life. And then if you like it, you could basically just sign up and bring your phones over. And then I believe even just keep the hotspot line even if you want to, right?
I'm not actually sure about that. I will just want to clarify the current offering is 30 days or 30 gigabytes of testing, whatever comes first.
Okay, 30 days or 30 gigabytes. I mean, that's a good amount of data to get a feel for network performance, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you don't like it, you just have to return the hotspot, right? That's it.
Actually, you don't even have to do that. So, Dennis, get this. I signed up for T-Mobile Test Drive and planning to do a video on it, like fully intending to cover this. And I think what happened is I prioritized other content. I never got to it. It was an embarrassing amount of time later, like 6 months to a year, I want to say. And the thing didn't work. I was never charged for it, never had to return it. I think I still have it somewhere and I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, it was a little bit of a schmozzle for me, but for anyone else, I think it is a really unique option. The one thing I will say is you're not able to test out really the call quality or some of the other planned features. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. I think giving an actual smartphone device almost is a better way to test the network than just hotspot data.
I agree. I mean, T-Mobile used to do that. They, like I said, they used to give out free iPhones for you to use, and I remember you had to return them if you didn't want to keep it. I think the switch to hotspots is good, especially since they said that you let them keep it. Like, they let you keep it, which is really cool. I mean, I do agree from a testing standpoint, it's not great for testing out call quality, but I still feel like you can get a pretty good indication of coverage and performance, right? I mean, how much does call quality literally change between the carriers, right? They're all implementing, the same
LTE. Yeah, That's a good question. I honestly don't have an answer for you. I've heard from some people that T-Mobile calling is a little bit lower quality, but I personally have found it to be great. So I don't know.
And how often are we like, if we weren't doing what we did in our personal lives, how often will we actually be calling, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. And, plus a lot of people are FaceTiming, they're using Google Duo, which is all using network data, and that's going to be infinitely better in terms of quality and performance.
Right. Like most things people are doing are getting away from traditional calls. I mean, there's still a point for it. Like lots of companies still require that, but like most people, if you're just talking to your friends or family, right, you're probably using iMessage, you're probably using FaceTime audio, you're probably using Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp if you're more international. So I feel like we're getting away from that being as important as it was.
Do you think we'll see Verizon or AT&T offering more affordable ways to test out and try their network?
Do they have the question is, do they even have to?
That's a reasonable question.
I was gonna say, like, the whole reason T-Mobile did it was because they had to kind of convince people because they had that stigma as being a
Yeah,
third.
they're the worst. That's
So,
what people used to think. So, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I guess I'll shout out to my audience. Like everyone who's following this knows that you can get a plan from Visible, you can get a plan from US Mobile for very affordable rates just to try out the networks and see what they're like. And maybe you like the service and you end up keeping it, or you say, "Hey, the coverage is great. I need premium unlimited data. I'm going to go with a postpaid plan from Verizon, or I'm going to go with a postpaid plan from AT&T." So, I think there are ways to test the networks that are super affordable and reasonable, but I just don't know that the broader audience knows about them. So maybe that's a good idea to do a video on, or to try and help people become more aware of in the future.
most definitely. But to answer your question in short, I don't think AT&T and Verizon will ever do it. Because I just don't see them having an incentive to do so.
I agree. That makes a whole lot of sense. They promote themselves as being premium. Oftentimes, premium in our minds is associated with a higher price. Look no further than Apple, for example, and I think the other wireless carriers kind of know that, and it makes a lot of sense.
Speaking of Apple, I know this wasn't really planned out, but I think it's ironic to see the shift. Like AT&T and Apple used to always be close knit, right? Like iPhone first came out on AT&T.
Yeah.
How about that mic drop whenever Verizon came on stage at the Apple event this year?
Yeah, that was wild. I think, okay, here's my take. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, Dennis. My take, and I actually am pulling influence from Sneed Mobile Tech and other creators who've been talking about this, but I think what happened is Verizon had close partnership with Apple to actually subsidize the cost of putting the millimeter wave antennas in all iPhones, right? Because that's typically around, I don't know what it ends up being, but typically we saw phones going for $100 extra that had millimeter wave support, right? So you could think Pixel 4a 5G, for example, the millimeter wave variant, $100 more expensive. The OnePlus 8, the Verizon compatible millimeter wave variant, $100 more expensive. So I think this partnership was likely spurred by Verizon, and it was because they were helping to somehow subsidize the cost of getting that X55 modem in there to bring millimeter wave 5G to all the phones. Because I think Verizon knew this was kind of a pivotal moment in their network to make sure customers had access to that experience. Dennis, what do you think? Do you think that's a possibility? Is it plausible? Or do you think there was maybe another reason Verizon was brought on stage?
I definitely think Verizon probably had a hand in the rollout of 5G. I still think it would have, the X55 modem being included in Apple's phones. I still think it would have happened anyway because Apple would have been forced to, just from pressure from other
Yeah,
carriers.
that's probably true.
As far as Verizon coming on stage, I think they just probably straight up behind the closed doors just straight up paid Apple. Like
You think they just bought that? Like, hey, we need this. This is
yeah. I think that's kind of what happened, right? Like, what better way to convince people that you have the best network for iPhones, which in the US is the predominant phone, than actually being at the Apple unveiling conference for the new iPhone for 5G, right? Like, that's something that's going to be remembered for years to come.
Yeah, by us. I mean, I don't know if the average person's going to remember that, but it will be remembered by us. I never really thought about what you mentioned, but it is definitely weird that there wasn't a stronger presence from AT&T considering the close initial partnership they had.
Right? Like I don't know if you remember this, man, but like it used to be like if you wanted to get an iPhone, you had to buy it through AT&T. There was no other option.
AT&T
Which
exclusive.
also on a side note, this year was really weird for Apple because if you tried to buy the phone directly from Apple, like avoiding a carrier, it was like $50 more expensive.
It was $30 more expensive for the 12 mini and the 12, starting at $730 and $830 respectively.
Yeah, like that was really abnormal this year as well.
Yeah, it was super weird, and I think that kind of does tie into the carrier agreements that go on behind the scenes that help subsidize and shift the costs of these devices. But yeah, as someone who did purchase, so I bought 2 iPhone 12s and a 12 mini. I saw that, and man, that kind of stung a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I will just say Apple did some weird things this year. As you know, I got the 12 Pro Max. I'm super happy with the phone. The one thing that I wish they would have did is I wish they would have incorporated the 120 hertz refresh rate that was supposed to be rumored.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I heard that battery life concerns and actually the yield rate of the panels, they weren't meeting Apple's standards. So I've heard rumors that these devices actually do include, or some of them do include displays capable of 120 hertz, but it actually is disabled just because it wasn't meeting spec and it's capped at 60 hertz.
Hey, another off the wall question for you since we sort of got into it. What do you think
Yeah.
the best? I know we kind of covered this last time, but do you still think iPhone is the best phone to use regardless of carrier, or do you think that there's a better option, or it depends?
Yeah, so I think it does depend. I mean, if you're an iPhone person like me, iPhones are obviously the best. I love the cross network compatibility. I will say that I was just out doing some testing and I love how on the Samsung phones they have, I forget what it's called, but there's a special code you can put in the dial pad and it lets you select exactly what antenna bands you want the phone to use. And this is helpful if you're a T-Mobile customer and you actually want to switch to the Sprint network. You can disable all the T-Mobile bands, just use the Sprint bands. Vice versa, if you're a Sprint customer and you want to make sure you're only using the T-Mobile network. And yeah, I thought that was really cool. So from a network testing perspective, I'm actually going to switch and say the Galaxy line of devices is much more capable and useful for that. So that's
Hey,
kind of, yeah.
out in Longmont, did Sprint have a noticeable presence in your market for coverage, or not?
Oh, yeah. So I didn't really test that. I had the Legacy Sprint Kickstart plan, which I signed up for. I did a video on like how to get that before it was discontinued. And Best Buy actually had a $25 deal where you could get it for just $25 a month. Ironically, after making the video and following all the steps, I never got the deal. Like they charged me the full $40 price. But yeah, I didn't actually use it too much. I did a couple tests and they were very slow in my market. So I think my Pixel 3a when it was on Sprint was actually it was really slow. But when I eventually switched to T-Mobile, I think it was preferring the T-Mobile network.
Okay. See, out in Pittsburgh, Sprint didn't actually do a terrible job as
Sweet.
far as coverage is concerned. In fact, for a very long time, they were better than T-Mobile for a very
Yeah,
long time.
I believe it. I mean, I was surprised in Boston when I was doing some speed tests. I hit like 200 megabits per second on Sprint on their LTE network, where I think it was T-Mobile 5G, or like I was doing the LTEs on the other networks, and they were doing like sub 100 or maybe like 150, and Sprint was killing it. I was like, wow. In some
But
locations, this is actually great, but it was like the cities. I feel like.
yeah, but the reason why I was asking, because it's really interesting to see just how degraded the performance is becoming for people that are still using the Sprint like SIM cards and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they're shutting the network down. They gotta move over ASAP.
Right? Like Sneed was doing a speed test today where band 26 was only like a 3x3 block of spectrum, and that was normally like 5x5. And like it was just interesting to see. And then like latency and jitter, like all kinds of performance related issues are just wild. But it's funny because as they're shutting down this network, right? It's not like they're instantly deploying the spectrum on the T-Mobile side. It's just kind of like sitting there being unused entirely, right?
I'm sure there's a bunch of things that have to go on in the back end to make it usable, to make it more optimized. So
Oh,
I
I
think,
know.
yeah, I can understand and respect that. But
I
yeah, we'll see
respect it,
after.
but even once it is fully deployed, there's another YouTuber that commonly goes on Sneed's videos that does speed tests who had like a pretty good Sprint market. And even when they do like convert all over to NR5G, like band 41 NR5G,
Yeah.
the peak speeds aren't really getting close to what T-Mobile was predicting. Like T-Mobile, Neville Ray and all of them, they say it's going to be like 600 megabits per second. And if you look at like Sneed's tests and stuff out in his market, he's only getting like 200 meg, which
Wow.
is still really good, right? But it's not that much better than what LT was able to do, right? So it's just like, what's going on here with this implementation?
Yeah, I
But
think I was actually testing N41 in the Longmont market. I was a T-Mobile, I don't know, rep or someone was able to confirm a location for me. I went out and tested it. I think I hit like 390 as my peak speeds. Like I think maybe 330 average on the S20, which was awesome. But yeah, I can definitely see them having some deployment issues or whatever.
I mean, it's like I said, that's still incredible, right? Like no one's
Right.
gonna complain, but it still just feels like I don't know. I just feel like T-Mobile constantly cuts corners in very small areas, but it shows. Like whether it be backhaul, like the type of backhaul that they're paying for. Like I get that AT&T and Verizon have a noticeable advantage since they literally own and operate their own like fiber, but
Right.
like T-Mobile will cut corners on the backhaul that they offer. T-Mobile regularly won't have backup power generators for their cell sites, so that like when a windstorm happens, if the power goes out in that area, like the power just goes with it, right? Like there's things that T-Mobile's not doing. And I feel like with them being as large as they are, they really should be taking the one touch approach that AT&T did when they acquired FirstNet, right? Like when AT&T got the FirstNet deal, they went on a mission. They said one touch. So when they would visit a cell site, they upgraded and fixed everything they could while they're at that one cell site so that they wouldn't have to go back. And T-Mobile seems to just be doing like these little upgrades, like they'll add Band 71 on this site, but not do N41.
Right. It's
And
like
it'll be like 2
minimal
years
viable
later.
products. Yeah.
It'll be like 2 years later before they touch it, right? Or they'll add N41 and Band 71, but they won't upgrade the backhaul to the cell site. So the max speed that you can see is still only 1.5 megabits per second because they didn't put the permit in to get extra like T1 fiber lines ran to the cell site. And it's just like, you're spending all this money. Why don't you just do it right so the customers can experience it? Like when LT, like I told you about this before, but when I got T-Mobile, I had 2G Edge in my cell set, right? They
Right.
upgraded to LT around 2016, but they didn't upgrade the backhaul. So it wasn't until 2018 that I started seeing the better speeds, even though the LT antennas were on there and showing the LT icon.
Jeez.
And I feel like that same thing is happening again with 5G. You know, they're getting the icon to show, but they're not doing all the other things that they need to do to make it a 5G experience.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I think that ties in with our previous episode where we're talking about, if we were to build our own MVNOs, what networks would we use? And we ended up opting for T-Mobile and AT&T kind of for our networks. I went AT&T, did the hybrid combo, which everyone loved. But I think it did stand out. Like one of the hesitations I had of going with T-Mobile was I didn't feel like they were really building their network out right, even though if it was a good value and if it did perform really well in some markets, just the long-term investment that I would want to make as an MVNO, building out my experience and making sure I could meet the needs of my customers. I felt like either Verizon or AT&T would have been the better option, so I ended up going with AT&T for my custom MVNO plan experience.
And that goes back to my wish list about I want this year coming up for T-Mobile just to focus on the network, because if they do that, everything else will follow smoothly.
Yeah.
Here's something we didn't even talk about. We literally haven't talked about this at all. How about Dish? Are you excited at all about Dish this upcoming
Oh
year?
man, that's a great question, and maybe we should actually save that for another episode because I feel
Okay.
like there's like a lot to dive into, maybe a lot to consider. Am I excited for Dish? Yeah, absolutely. Do I know if they're actually going to be able to do what they have to do to be a major competing carrier? I have absolutely no idea, but I really hope we see it because I think it would be great. My understanding is they do have excellent spectrum holdings. And I just really hope we can get that fourth competitor back in the market to spice things up again.
All right. Well, I think this is a good time to pivot to a Patreon question.
Absolutely, Dennis. So we actually had one question today from Breaking Data. Breaking Data, thank you so much for your support on Patreon. Breaking Data asks, what is your favorite carrier/MVNO plan, and what is one thing you would change to make it better? This is a great question. I guess, all right, Dennis, maybe let's pick one major carrier and one MVNO, pick one plan and one thing we can do to make it better. I think from the beginning of this podcast, I guess I'll go first while I'm on this talking flow. I would say T-Mobile, I would add more hotspot data. That's what I would do. Dennis, you got an major network operator, a plan that and one thing you may want to improve with it?
Yeah. My favorite carrier is T-Mobile as well, only because their customer service and billing is better. And then one thing that I would change about their plan to make it better would be the removal of the hard cap that they have on services like YouTube. Like even when you have your HD ad on, I'd want them to remove that. Like that 8 megabit cap, I want that gone.
Yeah, I can respect that. I'll add in a little bit of diversity here. I think if Verizon was able to include taxes and fees with their plans, I think that would take their overall experience to a whole new level,
And
right?
if AT&T did the same thing, oh my
Oh,
god.
oh,
If AT&T
delicious.
if AT&T did that, I want you to know right now, my cell phone bill with them would only be $140. If they were to do tax and fees included, I'd only be paying $140. Right now I pay $180. So that would save me
Jeez.
$40 per month.
What? They're charging you $40 in fees? That's like what, over a third or just under a third of your
Listen,
plan's fees?
if it wasn't for our discount that I get from my father for being like a firefighter, we'd be paying like $220.
Oh my goodness. I had
Right?
no idea. This is
AT&T
absurd. That's highway robbery.
AT&T. So listen, people think AT&T is cheaper than Verizon, but they're not. AT&T is actually the most expensive carrier, hands down. Period.
Unbelievable. All right, I'm gonna switch to the MVNO. I'm gonna pick US Mobile. They're currently my favorite because of their website design. I already mentioned I would frame it and hang it up on my wall, so clearly I'm digging it. Their dashboard, their usage analytics, international eSIM support. I think all of it's phenomenal. All right, I have two things I would change to make them better. Wi-Fi calling, would love to see that. I think that'd be a huge improvement. And I think more importantly, actually, the bigger thing is to include taxes and fees in their prices, right? Because US Mobile, they're actually not great. I wish they did a better job. They're a little transparent. They say on their website, hey, taxes and fees, $1 to $5 extra per line. From my experience, it ends up being a little bit closer to $5 to $7, depending on, what plan you get. I think if they could adjust their prices to include all taxes and fees, that would make the experience so much better, right? And even with taxes and fees included, US Mobile's rates are still phenomenal. $20 a month gets you unlimited talk and text with 3.5 gigs of data. It would probably be $35 a month for unlimited talk and text and 30 gigs of data. And I think just including those taxes and fees would really make that experience feel that much more premium and that much better.
And for my MVNO pick, it's going to be a curveball. It's not because they're my favorite. Well, it has to be a favorite, huh? Darn.
Well, no, you can. I'll let it slide. I think
Well,
it's more of a conversation starter.
okay, so it's not my favorite by any means, but I would love to see it. Xfinity Mobile and Spectrum Mobile and the carrier branded offers for
Yeah.
cell phone service. One thing that I would like to see as a change that would make them better is not requiring being like a Comcast customer to have it. I would love
Oh, yeah.
see that happen just to have that extra competition in the market, because those carriers prepaid plans are some of the rare few that I know of that actually offer priority data on the Verizon network, and I think that's like huge, right?
It's huge, and it's a really good balance too, where you get the high speed priority data that meets the needs of a majority of customers. I think it's typically around 20 to 22 gigs of priority data, and then you still get unlimited data, but I think they do cap it at 1.5 megabits per second, but
That's
the
still
val-
huge.
yeah, that's still usable, and the value you're getting for the plan for 90 to 95% of customers, I think is great. I would love to see that. Yes, that's a
Right.
good point.
$45, unlimited everything with 22 gigs of priority data. Like that is extreme value. And then, I mean, it would be good for the carriers too, right? Like, I mean, TV's dying, right? But a lot of these cable companies, they have their own streaming service at this point. Like, I'm sure they could figure out ways to bundle in other add-ons for the customer, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. But yeah, just that segmentation. Because if you're not a customer, you're paying $20 a month extra. And when you hit that $65 price point, it's like, well, what am I doing? Like, I might as well just go directly to Verizon or go directly to T-Mobile.
well, you
Or
can't even sign
yeah,
up with them if you're not a customer. It's 60. So you need to be an internet customer with Comcast to get their Xfinity mobile service, right? And
and
it's
then
45 and
yeah.
it's $45. But if you cancel your internet with them, they let you keep your cell phone service afterwards. But then, like you say, you pay the extra, and it's $25 extra.
Oh,
So
really?
Yeah, so it's $70 now.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm saying even if they had to charge increased pricing for not bundling with them, I still would like to see them offer a standalone cell phone product, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think just to have that extra competition, to see something unique, because I'll tell you one unique feature that I think is actually pretty huge, right?
Okay.
So Comcast has a ton of Wi-Fi hotspots. They basically turn everybody's like gateway, like they have like this separate Wi-Fi network on everybody's gateway, and then along like poles and stuff too, they'll have like little Wi-Fi nodes set up. And it's free Wi-Fi access for your Comcast customer, right? And you get that even if you're just a cell phone customer. And that's like a unique thing to them. I would like that's a huge selling point. That's a huge value. Like, if you have access to all this extra Wi-Fi, who's to say you even need the unlimited data plan? You can get away with like the 1 gig plan for $15 a lot easier because you have Wi-Fi in a lot more places. No other MVNO or cell phone network can do that, right? Like T-Mobile doesn't have Wi-Fi everywhere. So that's why I would like to see them. I think they could do some competitive things. And also, one alternative change that I'd like to see, and I know this will never happen, but I would love to see maybe one of the MVNOs that actually exists out there work out a deal with someone like Comcast or Spectrum or whoever to add that value, right? Like, that would be a really unique plan to see. A plan that focuses on you using Wi-Fi and then charging you like by the gig, like we talked about like from like last episode. I think that's a new way to drive down costs.
Sure. I think those are great ideas. Hopefully we get some people from the major networks listening and can explore opportunities there. And I think, Dennis, you actually bring up a really good idea that I wanted to translate over actually, and that's to Google Fi. I think if we took the pricing structure of Spectrum and Xfinity and applied it to Google Fi, where, I was commenting before with T-Mobile prepaid offering 2 gigs for $15, 5 gigs for $25, and then the other prepaid offerings, you get unlimited as low as $50 a month. I would love to see Google Fi basically cut their rates in half, where maybe you have a $10 unlimited talk and text plan, totally reasonable. That's what US Mobile is offering. Maybe it's $15 on Google Fi, whatever it is, 10 to $15, unlimited talk and text, and then $5 per gigabyte. I think that would be sweet. And as a cherry on top, if they could add in a little network integration between, before they were doing Sprint and T-Mobile before the merger, what if they added in like AT&T to the mix? That's GSM. That should be relatively easy to integrate. I think that would be sick. I would love to see that.
You know what? Now that you say that, yeah. If I had to pick an actual MVNO plan to stay more true to the Patreon's question, I'd pick Project Fi or Google Fi. And the change that I would like to see is similar to you. I would want them to integrate T-Mobile and AT&T's network with US Cellular, because that is the mix for the best coverage you can possibly get. And I don't even care if they change the pricing at that point. Like, if they did that, if they had T-Mobile, AT&T, and US Cellular's network, I would switch in a heartbeat. That's the best coverage you can ask for in the US.
Yeah, I'd also love to see improved customer service and support. I mean, I've been following the Google Fi subreddit, and unfortunately, it's just turned into like a support forum. So I think Google Fi, if you're listening, I think you could use a little bit of love in your support department to really help take you to the next level.
Do you see it? Real question here. Do you see it sticking around? Because Google has a bad track record of actually supporting a lot of products.
I know, you're right. I do think it'll stick around, but I'm just not sure if it'll get changed or improved in any way. But
that seems to answer the Patreon's question pretty well. Do you got any sponsors that you want to plug?
Yeah, Dennis, thank you for asking. Love to plug some sponsors. We don't have any sponsors yet on this podcast, but we do have some affiliate promos from our affiliate partners, and I want to highlight a few of them for you. If you're considering testing out a new network or a new service, Mint Mobile is doing a buy 3, get 3 promo. So you buy 3 months of service with any one of their plans, and you get 3 months free. This is a really incredible opportunity to not only test out Mint Mobile, but also the T-Mobile network in your area. And for example, Mint Mobile's $30 35 gig plan would come out to just $15 a month for 6 months of service, which is an incredible value. If you're interested in testing out Verizon Visible, you can get your first month of service for just $3, which is insane. And if you want to eventually switch to them, I would suggest considering a new account, as that will let you get the MasterCard, or as a prepaid MasterCard promo that they're offering. So you can check that out. Ting, you can get $25 of Ting credit by going to stetson.ting.com And if you're interested in trying out US Mobile, seeing what their beautiful website and experience is, you can try them out by using promo code Stetson at checkout. You'll get $20 of account credit and a free SIM starter kit. So thank you to our affiliate partners for providing these cool deals and discounts to our listeners. You can check these deals out in the show notes and in the video description. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video, or excuse me, this podcast. So used to making YouTube videos. That's going to be it for this episode. I'm Stetson.
And I'm Dennis.
That was pretty good. And we look forward to talking to you in the next one. Hope everyone has a happy holiday. Take care, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.